It's part 2 of Rome Remastered, Abridged as Parthia, where last time, in between trying not to cry and failing, I was able to play some of the game. We took down some nearby rebels and we've killed a couple of armies from Armenia, so now we'll get into the meat of things. It's time to actually invade another real faction. And here we go, we're just going to walk into their first settlement. We already killed a whole bunch of stuff around here, so there's not much left. There was another army standing outside before, but it's not there when we show up. So that's all good. However, with my cavalry-only force, we actually can't take a settlement. We need these slingers. But when I try to move them up, there's a hidden enemy force right next to them, so there they are. That's inconvenient, isn't it? All I can do now is hope that they don't kill me. Here's the next turn. Well, they didn't kill me, that was nice of them. They decided to walk around my slingers, a big mistake. Now the slingers can successfully catch up with the army making the siege. There's the button I want to press that's greyed out. You can't make an attack while you have only mounted units, because you can't dismount in the original Rome Total War, nor in the remaster. So the slingers come in, now we can technically ram the wall and it will let us fight. We're just going to auto-resolve that because there's not much to it, and that's all fine. I almost picked the second option here. I'm too used to playing Medieval 2, where the second option is always optimal. Here I'm not quite so sure. I feel like enslaving people doesn't help an enormous amount. The reason it's good in Medieval 2 is it increases public order and just lets you leave immediately. Here I don't know if enslaving people will really help. What I did do is have some of the army leave in order to go back after those Armenians that snuck past us, leading to this battle. In this case, we don't need to do anything particularly clever because we have 3 horse archer units and they have 1. So if we just stand here and shoot at each other, it should go our way. Plus, I'm already in loose formation, and after the first volley, the AI will waste some time getting itself into loose formation, giving us a little bit more of an advantage as well. And there's one more trick we can use which will help us out. That is Cantabrian circle formation. This works because of the way the AI targets you when you're moving. It's trying to shoot ahead of you, but if you're running in a circle, it's only looking at where ahead of you is in a very linear fashion. So it can't really tell where to shoot and tends to just shoot all over the place randomly, meaning it very rarely hits you when you're in Cantabrian circle, or at least that's how it works in Medieval 2 in my experience. There might be some downsides. You do lose stamina doing this, doesn't matter in this battle, and maybe you shoot less quickly, not quite so sure about that. It's at least similar to how quickly you fire when standing still. Whatever the case, we're able to wipe out the enemy's horse archers. They refuse to rout because it's one of these games. This is a high morale game. Various Total Wars differ on this, but generally you have to kill virtually everything to get rid of a unit in this game. Maybe it's because it's on hard difficulty as well, that does affect that in some way. Suffice to say, once the enemy's archers are gone, we just win the battle because we can just run around with the horse archers and kill whatever we want. They can't do much against us. Here we almost actually get caught by these eastern infantry, but they rout when I just walk into them. That's the end of that. Take some friendly fire. I'll chase them off the field. Not sure I actually need to do that in this case, but I'm doing it anyway just for my own amusement apparently. Probably because I was paranoid about the enemy not dying. At least some of the enemy did survive by the looks of things. A general sneaks away. But at least we have stopped their cheeky move into our territory, so we don't have to focus on the right. We'll go back to focusing on the left, where we just need to go after that other Armenian territory that my diplomat has already found. We are going to have public order issues here, so we'll have to leave some stuff behind and generally sort out this town. But skipping forward a little bit, we eventually put together this stack of stuff and move out. The Armenians don't have much in the way of defences at Kotes there, so we can just get in there and kill them at our leisure. Just a nice advantage of rushing the enemy down as much as possible. They probably can't re-recruit their army before we're in there besieging their town. They've got a guy standing outside the town. This would be perfect for a siege draw-out actually. But unfortunately that guy is not going to engage us. In an ideal situation, we'd siege draw out the enemy, kill everybody, and then take the town without a siege. That would allow me to have the town this turn, and without bringing up infantry. As it stands, we're going to have to siege, start building the rams, and get somebody over to man the ram so we're allowed to initiate the battle. Here our magical sacrificial slingers are here to do the job, and this is the battle we now face. It's the kind of battle I'd probably want to auto-resolve, but I don't trust the auto-resolve, especially in a siege attack. and I'm thinking we can probably exploit this battle in some way to really minimize our casualties, and a chance to look at a remastered siege attack against walls, albeit very small walls. Small enough that we're going to be raining arrows over them at anyone standing vaguely near our side of the town. There's a bit of a ranged battle, these guys can shoot back, but we're just going to overwhelm them with arrows, and that should be fine, even popping off some Cantabrian circles, just to flex really. So after a while the arrows do their work and the enemies near the wall either die or go back to the town square. I open the gates using my slingers with the ram, and then some enemy spearmen come over as if to defend. But that's a big mistake because now they're just going to get hit by arrows. They start running away as soon as they get here. But it's too late, we've got our 5 or 6 units just pounding them, and with their backs to us there's no shield bonus, they're going to go right down. There is a weird thing with their torches floating in the air. I think this was actually highlighted in the early access email to get this game as a known bug, so they're working on that one supposedly. I was trying to work out if this tower here was shooting at me because there's a bit of movement on the screen you might be able to see. I think what's happening is a shadow of some of my horse archers' shots going across the front of the moon in the background is landing on that tower. Or maybe it is shooting at me, I don't know, I was just going crazy trying to work it out. At least things are going well in the battle as I do that spear unit is basically dead. As for the other units, they came closer to the gate as I started to go through it. That's perfect, we can just send through the things that are better in melee like my pile of generals, and all of our support horse archers will rain arrows all over the place. Plus those generals are a Jav-Cav unit that will skirmish, so all we're doing here is letting the enemy general chase me. He's being absolutely pounded by arrows from the back and jabs from the front. He'll be massively depleted, then we can just melee him to death in a corner somewhere. All good. The surviving enemies are walking towards my archers, so we're going to win this battle without doing too much more. I actually paused the battle at this stage because I suddenly realized something. It tells you that you're at war with the enemy when you put a tooltip over them. I was only really amazed by that because this tooltip could have more information on it, and telling you that you're at war with them is such a low priority piece of information. It's not completely useless because your allies might be there as well or something, but I really want to make a new tooltip for this game. Anyway, after getting over myself, it looks like I eventually killed the last few enemies by running onto the capture point, and that's that. We took barely any losses, and we've now taken down Armenia. This was something I totally forgot about Rome 1, but it is indeed the case that many factions only have a couple of settlements. You sort of forget after playing the newer games that the regions in the original are really big. There aren't many settlements on the map, so you can wipe out factions by just quickly storming 2 or 3 locations, and we've done that. With Armenia, they went down pretty easy. We've still got some annoying rebels standing around, but that's easy enough to deal with, or we could just not deal with it. We need to decide now what to do next, so I opened up the tactical map thing to look at the situation in a colourful way. We've got 3 things we can do. We can attack the Seleucids, Pontus, or Scythia. The Seleucids are the local superpower, so going after them is the most difficult option. As for the Scythians, it's sort of annoying to attack them because they have big territories, they'll have loads of horse archers, although attacking them would allow us to unify our territory and it would look a bit nicer. Then I checked the objectives and discovered my objective is to take down the Seleucid Empire and own 15 regions. What we should do here really is go after Pontus. They only have 3 territories, we could just steamroll to the west and take them out. But what I decided to do instead is prepare to attack the Seleucids, just because it might be a bit more interesting to go up against a faction that's bigger than us, and one that has tons of hoplites that we can exploit with our horse archers. Should be good. I was able to grab an alliance with Pontus instead, so that's the plan we're going for. We'll not look to the west, we will look to the south and try to overwhelm the Seleucids before they can do the same to us. We'll certainly be at an economic disadvantage. Wasted a bit of time taking down some of the rebels standing around, but now I'm ordering my army to walk south towards the nearest enemy settlement. Well, not yet enemy settlement, I should say. All this, though, is a bit of a moot point when it comes to my strategic thinking, because it turns out the Seleucids were coming for me the whole time. I noted one of their armies has appeared in my territory back over to the east. We're not at war with them as noted, but clearly the AI is thinking of doing something there. They're not just going to walk around in your territory for no reason. So the decision is made for me, is the point I'm trying to make. We're not going to go for Pontus or Scythia, it's Seleucid time, and we're also not going to go with my original plan to just move south into their lands. We're going to sweep around to the east to try and clear up that invading army, because it really could take down the majority of our territory if we just leave it alone. We have barely anything in the rest of our settlements. We don't have that much in our main army either, really. This was the point in the campaign when I started actually seriously recruiting units, like recruiting something every turn in a couple of settlements at once to start building up our strength. So here we have a decent ball of horse archers. I'm even going to leave some of it behind and keep building it up with more units being recruited over here, because there is actually another Seleucid army that I've seen skulking about on my borders, and of course we might be able to attack them from that direction as well. So I've sent roughly a half stack of horse archers to go and be our defensive force, and they can quickly move since they have no infantry in the army. We don't move fast enough. We are now under siege at our capital, but in the next turn we'll be able to relieve it if they don't attack. There's also a very small force coming down towards Susa. I've got a bit of trash here that I've been building for public order reasons. I'm going to keep building it and have another army down here as well if I can. There was me spamming units to try and see if we could recruit more than one thing at a time. Doesn't look like you can. Now as for the army I mentioned earlier, it's this one here. There's a big stack moving about to our southwest. I had the spy do a spying action against them. I thought that caused your spy to go into their army, but I don't know. There's no feedback, not quite sure what's going on, but it seems we now know what they have. And they don't have that much. While their army looks big and scary from a distance, it's really packed out with peasants and just militia hoplites otherwise. That's nothing too difficult, especially for horse archers. They can't do anything against horse archers, in fact. So while we don't have much stuff in that area, I wasn't too concerned. We do have some annoyance up in the corner of the map. Scythia have decided to declare war on me with that surprise attack. Here is what I suspect the Seleucids are up to. Our allies Pontus are currently besieging Tarsus, so that big stack that was moving to the west is most likely going into Pontus to go and cause some trouble over there. That's absolutely perfect. They're going to be very distracted when we come into their territory, mainly at the other end, just what we need. Although we do need to now consider the possibility of Scythians coming down from the north, and of course look into this siege. They've only got a couple of units, not very much, but my garrison force is just a load of peasants that has very little combat ability. I decided to just leave that situation and hope they went for a siege assault where we may be able to gain some advantage and stop the enemy's horse archers from just continuously running away from us, anything like that. Speaking of running away, the Seleucids broke their siege at my capital and appeared to be moving back home, but they won't be able to outrun my horse archer army, so while I couldn't force a battle this turn, we'll start chasing them. At the same time, a very small group will go down towards Hatra, where while I don't have many troops here, I was confident I could achieve something, so we'll just bring this group of horse archers with one unit of ram slingers to try and grab a town and then just sit there to annoy the Seleucids while what is presumably their main force is off killing Pontus. All good. Now we do catch up with that invading army in the next turn. It's got a few Peltus units in there, and that's something we do need to be more concerned about, because horse archers are, broadly speaking, weak against ranged attacks. So if a Jav unit runs up and jabs into your horse archer unit, they're going to go down real fast. But of course we do outrange the Javs, so we can use that to our advantage with a bit of micro. It's a night battle, so it's pretty hard to see what's going on here. But the gist of it is that I've got two groups of horse archers going for both flanks of the enemy army, and we'll just rain arrows all over the place. My goal was to try and kill the Peltasts first, because if we can get them out of the picture, we can then just use the rest of our ammo freely shooting at the hoplites that will never be able to catch up to us. Here, some of the Peltasts actually ran right up to one of my horse archer units. Handily, they didn't throw, so we avoided any major damage. That's the sort of situation where we could be in trouble. So now we just dance around the enemy, really, just a case of making sure skirmish mode works by, in most cases, doing the skirmishing manually. We can also open up some opportunities to do things other than shooting with arrows, like right here, where With the enemy maneuvering about, trying to attack me with spears and stuff, sometimes their peltasts will end up on their own, and we can just go in for melee attacks, which of course is much more efficient than wasting arrows on these guys, saving more arrows to shoot into the hoplites. So our pile of generals takes out one of their units in this fashion. Now we'll quickly get out of there before the nearby peltasts counter throw, and that's the end of that. Now, well, we'll keep shooting arrows. They've got some levy pikemen there, absolutely delicious targets with their back to us, gradually moving away. This is pure horse archer exploits territory. There's just nothing they can do to stop me from doing this. Eventually it just gets ridiculous. We're all around them, raining arrows from all directions. Their general's cav that could charge out and try to get us into melee pretty much just flounders and dies. And then the battle comes to an end. Here I wanted to test whether I could end the battle here and have the rest of the enemies get deleted. I figured it might have the same rules as Medieval 2, where if you've killed more than 85% of the enemy force, the rest are presumed dead afterwards. Now I accidentally continued the battle. Normally you can just press exit battle to do the same thing afterwards, but this message saying I was going to concede defeat came up. It might actually be lying because I've already won the battle, but I didn't want to risk it, so I went on to do the route phase manually. Perhaps need a bit more context on that menu or something, if you really can exit the battle in that way. We actually lost no troops to the enemy. They didn't kill any of us, although we did lose some troops because in the storm of arrows and javelins everywhere there was a bit of friendly fire. Overall though, we absolutely annihilated them. A perfect start to our war, and of course we'll follow up by running straight towards their first settlement. We'll need to link up with some of the infantry from Susa to be allowed to besiege it. But for now, things are looking pretty good. It's time to grab some momentum and just storm on into their empire. There are a few guys hanging around the border. A watchtower reveals the general situation here. Not too bad. They've got a very small army at Hatra and a few guys wandering about outside the settlement. Nothing too much to worry about unless they're like all archers. That could be hard for us to bring down, but if it's all melee infantry, much more likely this will be very easy. We're going to target these 2 units of militia hoplites with a manual battle just so I can kill them without taking any casualties whatsoever. I'm actually pressing Ctrl S right now because I'd read that this allows you to quick save on the battle initiation screen. I think that is a lie. It does work in some Total War games. In this case my quick save didn't appear to be updated, so I went to save over it manually. What I actually did there is load it manually in a mishap because it's a save load menu, they're not separate menus. So if you double click on something it just so happens that load is what it does rather than save. And I fell afoul of that, so now I'm back to before the last battle. Handily, in the remaster it saves at the start and end of each turn. You get lots of autosaves, so I can quickly get back to where I was without too much lost progress, and then make a manual quick save very carefully, just in case the game crashes or something, not like we need to be save scumming this battle or anything like that. Well, here we are on the field. These hoplites are just walking about, minding their business out on the plains, when a storm of arrows and jazz takes them out. This time we are just going to end the battle normally because I have killed enough to make sure the army disappears on the campaign map. Although in this case, having an enemy army standing around outside the town could be useful, because you could do something with the siege draw out exploit, have one of your units go and besiege the town, defeat the army with an auto-resolve the one outside the town. It will try to retreat back into the town, get stuck outside because it's under siege. You raise the siege, then attack the army again, forcing a battle where the garrison has to come out. A classic trick that we're not going to use, just saying you probably could have used it in this situation if you were paying attention, unlike me. So we're pretty much set up to go for Hatra in a more traditional fashion now, unless the Seleucids have another army hiding nearby. Here's a little random tip that people may not know about. You can open the settlement income screen and the building thing on the right at the same time. This lets you see what the buildings actually do, and in many cases reveals the truth of Rome 1 and Medieval 2, that a lot of the buildings barely do anything, especially the economy buildings. You have to be very careful about putting a lot of money into your economy because it may actually not grow at all unless you already have a whole bunch of trade routes and stuff. You could check that in the original as well, by the way, and it looked better in the original, But that is one reason to not have the construction menu take up the full screen, which I would like, although they found a way around that in the original by having it be half and half. Oh, the glory days of the original. As you can see, I concerned myself now with the Scythian siege. They hadn't attacked me for a while, but then eventually they did, so I am going to get the defensive siege battle I was looking for. We'll see at the start of the next part, then, how good our peasants will be in battle, really. Peasants have something like 1 attack, 0 defense, that kind of stats. Essentially nothing, the purest of the pure trash. Maybe they can do something in the right circumstances, that's what I'm hoping. I'll see you next time to witness my hopes not being fulfilled.